Hey everyone, this is a purple fluorite tower, and as you can see, it's in pretty rough shape. It's a poor cut and polish, and it's picked up a few chips, and the main point has been smashed. It's pretty clear this one has taken a bad fall in the past, but underneath that damage and poor cut and polish is a really beautiful stone, so I thought we'd give it a new life as a D20. Before we can do any cutting, we need to get the stone mounted on a dot. We'll be using our trusty Loctite 5-minute epoxy resin for this, as it sets up pretty quickly and creates a super strong bond. While that's curing, let's talk a bit about this fascinating material. Fluorite is actually the mineral from which we get the term fluorescence, because many specimens contain impurities that glow under ultraviolet light. This one has a really nice bluish purple glow that we'll get to see a little bit later. The name fluorite is derived from the Latin verb fluere, meaning to flow. This name comes from its use as a flex material in iron smelting, where it's used to reduce the viscosity of slag, helping it to flow better. Fluorite forms through hydrothermal processes where heated fluorine-bearing groundwater interacts with calcium-rich rock formations. This creates these amazing crystal structures that can form in a stunning array of colors from deep purples to vibrant greens. Since this piece will end up pretty large, we're going to go with a beveled point cut design to ease the impact of rolling. By carefully beveling all the edges and flattening the points, we'll not only add some beautiful design features, but will also significantly extend the life of the die by reducing the risk of chipping and damage during play. For this project, we'll be running through a series of labs, starting with our 120 grit diamond topper lab to remove the bulk of the material and establish the rough shape, followed by our 240 grit to refine it further and cut through the damage caused by the 120. Then we'll move to a 600 grit to bring each facet to its final location and cut in all of the bevels and point flats. From there, we'll do a quick pre-polish on a 3000 grit, and then we'll be using our leather lab with some Lind A for final polish. In my experience, this combination works particularly well on most 4 or less stones and gives a beautiful high luster. So let's get cutting. So our 240 grit work is done and the bulk of the material has been removed, so now we're going to take a few minutes to clean up our work area before moving on. This is always an important step when working with any stone, as all the dust and grit can be seriously harmful if inhaled, and we want to clean up as much as possible before it has a chance to spread too far. In addition, small bits of dust could end up contaminating our finer labs and cause some real headache further into the process. A few minutes of cleaning up now not only protects our health, but also helps to reduce the risk of damaging the stone down the line. As we move through our 600 grit lab, I'm really starting to see the beauty of this stone emerge. The colors within the fluorite are absolutely fascinating. Bands of light lavender interweave with rich purples, creating an incredible depth. The way the color bands interact with the light is so beautiful. All the main bevels are cut in, and I'm thrilled with how this stone is looking so far. We also got the points around the outer ring cut, but we've got one more challenge ahead, and that is flattening this very top point. This is exciting because I've never actually tried this technique on dice before. For this special step, we'll be borrowing a tool that gem cutters use on pretty much every stone, but is pretty rare in dice making. This is a 45-degree table adapter. It's typically used to create the large flat face on the top of a gem called the table, but since D20s don't have tables, I've never really had a use for this. But for our point cut design, it's perfect. First, we need to loosen the quill and carefully remove the stone and dot. Then we'll take the set screw out completely and slide the adapter over the quill. With the index wheel set to 80, we'll give the set screws a light tighten, just enough so that it doesn't slip away. Now, by setting our angle to 45, we can rest the flat side of the adapter directly against the master lap to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned. Once that's all lined up, we can make sure both of our set screws are nice and tight. Now we just slip the dot back into the adapter and we're ready to go. That worked out beautifully. Next step is a quick pre-polish on the 3000 grit, and then we'll move on to the leather lap for our final polish. Well, something bad happened. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but something contaminated the leather lap and threw a couple of deep gouges into the face I was working on. This definitely sucks, but at least we're still on the first side, so we don't have to deal with retransferring. I'm going to do a deep clean of the entire station real quick, and then we'll go back to the 3000 grit to carefully cut past the damage. Unfortunately, this means we're going to have to recut all of the bevels and point cuts to keep everything aligned as well. It's important to remember that while these problems suck, they're just setbacks. We did everything we could, and sometimes things like this still happen anyway. All we can do is keep going. We're going to be pushed back a handful of hours, but this is something we can absolutely recover from. In the end, we'll still end up with a beautiful dye, even if it takes a little longer than we expected. Alright, so we've cut down past the damage, and you can see that we've created a little bit of a new problem. If you look closely, you can see that the vertical and horizontal bevels are now different widths. The horizontal ones are only cut on one side, just the top, but the vertical bevels are cut on both sides, so they've ended up significantly thinner. So now with some careful adjustments, we're going to go through and recut all of the bevels to the same width, and then do the same thing with all of the point cuts as well. So I cut my finger and I wanted to explain what happened. You see me touch the top of the lap all the time, and this is fine as long as you never touch the edge. The edge is a lot more aggressive and can cause a lot of damage very quickly. Just something to be aware of so you can be careful and stay safe. Here's everything recut on the 3000 and we're in good shape. Luckily that only cost us like 4 hours of work, so we're not too far behind. Now back to polishing. Here's the final polish on the first side, and I couldn't be happier with how this is turning out. The leather lap has given this dye a beautiful glass-like polish that really showcases the depth of color. The lap also has a bit of give to it, which softens the edges of the facets, slightly rounding them in the process. For a dye like this, I actually really like the effect. It makes it feel super glossy, which is incredibly satisfying. Now we're going to get the daub transferred to the other side using our transfer jig and some more epoxy resin, then we'll repeat the process for the second half. From there, we'll cut out numbering masks on our CNC machine, sandblast the numbers in, paint them, and we'll be all finished up. If you're enjoying watching this dye come to life, please take a second to click the like and subscribe buttons below. Each one helps to push YouTube to recommend this channel to new people. Your support helps me to continue creating more dice, stories, and videos like this. Thanks. When I look at this dye, I imagine Isa as she staggers back from the monolithic indigo crystal pillar as it pulses a piercing, unstable violet light that seems to fracture the air itself. Arcane backlash sparks around her in angry static. The protective runes, sigils meant to bind and align the crystal, dissolve into useless violet mist. Rain plasters long strands of dark hair to her pale face as she stares defiance at the cold, glowing crystal that holds both her guilt and her shame. Through the downpour, she cannot help but hear the ever-growing deep whispers and their promise of twisted solace. Isa once burned bright with talent and ambition, learning the sacred art of warding from the guardian of the stone, her husband, Loris. But her ambition curled into hubris. During their last annual resealing ritual together, convinced her own untested modifications could perfect the ancient seals, she instead unraveled the intricate runes that Loris commanded. Power erupted. The flow she sought to master becoming a violent, consuming torrent, melting the very matrix it was meant to strengthen. Cracks shot through the crystal in an instant. Energy poured out and washed over Loris, his final moments seared deep into her memory, consumed by raw, unraveling violet light. Now she alone bears the burden of the weakening seal, her magic forever tainted, its once steady flow now disrupted by echoes of her fatal arrogance. Her abjurations, once pristine shields of steady indigo light, now manifest as fractured, flickering barriers, shot through with erratic seams of discordant violet. The entity sealed within the stone does not batter the walls. It seeps through the unseen fractures. Its presence is a chilling pressure, a faint, sourceless violet glow deep within the stone extending its long tendrils of influence. Its lure pulls the minds of the valley towards its desolate consciousness, leaving only hollow shells behind. Their forms now shamble through shadowed woods and quiet homes, skin bearing map-like tracings of indigo light beneath the surface, eyes vacant save for a terrifying protective instinct towards the pillar's influence. Isa knows the path. Ascend the peaks of the Hilfrad Thorns, seek out the deep seal stones and return with them to the pillar, and face the ritual yet again. But each time she calls upon her magic, she is confronted by the echo of her husband, a flickering phantom of searing violet light, his accusation silent but absolute. Her guilt is the entity's foothold, her failure the cracks in the world's defenses through which madness seeps. Still, Isa rises yet again, gathering the remnants of her strength and focus. She must ascend the peaks. She must face the pillar, and she must confront the ghost that she created, where the light of the entire valley may be extinguished by the consequences of her fall.